Hi, I'm Salia. It's Salia Space. I heal, transform, and empower women. And I am honored and very grateful to have Beck, who's gonna share a journey with us. So, hi, Beck. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Enjoying sunshine.
Yeah. So today you're gonna share your journey of being a mom and having a husband that is working away. So can you first start with your relationship when you started, when you met, kind of thing, just to have a background of like how was your situation prior being a mom?
Okay, so my partner and I met up here through mutual friends when we were both quite young. It was actually his 21st, his birthday that we got together, but we'd known each other a couple of months before that. So now we're, both close to 40. So we've known each other a while. But yeah, we were quite young. We had a lot of fun together, both hospitality. So we met, fell in love. Within a couple of weeks, we were declaring our love to each other and just moved in straight away pretty much, and just had like this amazing honeymoon period for like 4.5 years. And then I fell pregnant and the honeymoon ended. But we had a really beautiful love story and amazing connection, and just felt like we were two peas in a pod and got to enjoy quite a long time together before children.
Awesome. And what was your situation back then, like professionally?
Yeah, so it was actually we were both hospitality, so we're working in town, different restaurants around town. I actually had a major car accident a year before we got married, and so that then he shifted out of hospitality, because at that time he changed his mind about working in hospitality, because I was in hospital and he couldn't get out of work to come and see me and be with me. So he realized that hospitality wasn't a great industry for him moving forward with us in the relationship. So he then got into building and construction and was in that for a couple of years. But then when I fell pregnant, it was around the same time, or when we had our first baby, it was around the same time that the global financial crisis happened, the beginning of 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in construction and realized that the year ahead there were no jobs. So he had the job that he was in, and that there were no more contracts coming. So new father, I had no income because I was new baby, and he freaked out. The place where I was working, the day spa I was working, the owners of that actually had contacts within the mining industry and offered my partner the chance to do a traineeship in mining. And it meant that he would have to go to WA to do the training for like 8 to 9 months. So I had the choice then of either going with him at that time, or staying here. And I felt like I didn't want him to lose that first year of our first child's life. So I ended up going to him to WA. But that was really the beginning of how we got into, or how he got into an industry, which then meant he was working away. So it was really at the same time that I had my first baby.
And how did you feel about that situation when you kind of realized that, okay, well, maybe this is going to be our lives for a long period of time? Like, how did you feel knowing that it's changed from, hospitality to construction, and construction to the mines, and be like, okay, I'm going to be that mom that's going to be almost like alone with my child, with my kid, and then it's gonna be the father that's just gonna work away. Like, how did you feel with that?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I didn't give it. I wasn't actually thinking of that. Um, back then, I really loved adventure, and I thought the opportunity to go live in WA, like, what an adventure! Why not? I'll give that a go. I didn't realize that it would turn into, him working away. I didn't realize at that time. I felt like, okay, we'll go to WA, we'll be together, we'll have each other. That's all that mattered.
Yeah.
And I guess I had no experience. I didn't know anyone else that was sort of had that as an option. So I didn't really have anyone to talk to about it to realize, what it could entail or what it meant down the track.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't realize the impact that it would have. For me, the decision was that I wanted to keep us together as a little family. And I felt like in that initial training I did, it moved to working away when I realized that I wasn't happy in WA because all of family and friends were here in Queensland. So then it was when we moved back to Queensland that he actually started to work away. And yeah, so it was either, the options then were either me being away from everybody or having him working away. So we came back here, and that's when he started working away. In hindsight, I would probably, if I was giving advice to anyone was asking me about it, I would be, so honest in saying that it is really difficult. Even moving with small children, and living, it sounds sort of, I don't know, to me it sounded enticing to be traveling with little kids and, not needing that stability, and, that sounded great. But yeah, now I would say it's not easy.
So how old was your first child then when you decided to leave WA to Queensland?
Okay, so my eldest was 2 at the time, and I guess my partner was looking at what other work there could be up here in North Queensland, but because it is so touristy, he'd already gotten used to the good paycheck of the mining industry. So that's when he chose, and there was work for him available. So that's, my eldest was 2 and he started working away. Yeah.
Okay. And were you still stay-at-home mom, or did you start going to work?
So I was working part-time. We lived up in Gelatin at the time, and that's when the Gelatin Mountain Retreat was still running. And they were so wonderful and accommodating. There were other people that worked there that had children, so it made it really easy for me to just slip in and do bits and pieces of work for them. But it wasn't that long really until I was pregnant with my second. And really, to be honest, I think I may have blocked out. I'm thinking back, why would I have another baby when he was already working away and it was hard? I just don't know. I don't know why I would do that. But I guess, I remember distinctly that I came back from a massage training course. So I was at that point where I was feeling a bit of freedom within myself, I guess, and was working a little bit more. And so I was like, yes, I can do this. I can have another baby. And I've always had the desire to have 2 or 3 babies. So, this one came along, and
isn't that funny? Sorry to interrupt. Isn't that funny that, we women, we are going through some challenges with our first, child, and then when things start to get better, to be good and feel like we're in control, like, oh yeah, I can do that. I can
Yep.
go to that again. I totally can relate to this because, our, baby girl, she's 7 weeks, and I felt like, oh yeah, I was struggling so much with Scarlett, and then after 3 years later, I'm like, I can do that again, and I'm like,
Yeah,
money,
yeah,
money, money.
yeah, totally forget. It's, yeah, it's crazy. But also, I mean, I've come from a big family. I'm the youngest of 7. So I always wanted to have siblings, and in my perfect world, they were all going to get along, and, it was going to be a great little, family. And don't get me wrong, I love my children, and they are a great little family. We are a great little family. Just don't always get along.
Yes. Oh yeah, well, I guess that this is the thing. Like, we have our own perception of how a family and how a mother should be, and then the reality kicks in, and it's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go with the flow right now, and you know, push away and just like let it go, all those beliefs and perception, and just like try to fit in. Um, so you had your second one, and were you still working, or did you decide to be a stay-at-home mom? Like, what happened?
So I I was still massaging through my second one's pregnancy, and then when he was born, I ended up getting into what is it called, like network marketing with Norwex, and I loved it because it was easy to do and I loved the products. I still have the products. So my middle one is he's almost 7. And so I had all of these products that are like guaranteed for 2 years, and I'm still using them 7 years later. So yeah, the side on the side. But that's what I did to keep me busy and keep me to give me something else other than just mothering.
Yeah.
My partner was working away that whole time. Although when I do remember when my middle child was probably about 12 to 18 months old, I begged my partner to come home. I had enough of him working away because it was really stressful, and I was actually going through a phase then where I was getting panic attacks, just huge anxiety, and I begged Vance to come home. He did come home, and he tried construction, and I started working part-time as a massage therapist in town. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't at the retreat, it was in town. So I loved it. I was working part-time. My partner's paycheck dropped, but to come home, construction, but we were making it work because we were both bringing in money. And that's, that to me, that's what I love. And that's what I was always hoping for with having a family, that we could both parent equally and both earn money equally, and both contribute in that way. But then I noticed after a few months his mood started going down, really getting depressed. He was not happy working in construction. So I remember having the conversation with him saying, look, what can we do? What can we do here? You're not happy. And you're coming home, you're not happy. You don't want to be, didn't want to, he wasn't living. So what can we do? And so I said, don't want you working away again, because that sucked. We ended up moving back to WA so that he could work in mining and the family could stay together. And it was okay. It was better that time. But after a couple of years, I was just I'd had enough again. And really, that was when I realized my home is North Queensland.
So what happened during that time? So you've okay, as a, you know, as a partner, as a mom, you realize that your partner is not happy with his job, so therefore you decided to sacrifice, kind of like, is it you know, if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but almost say like, well, you know, I can sacrifice the fact that I wanted to be close to my family, let's move there, so us as a family we can be together. And then what happened there? Like you say you were there for a few years, but were you working, uh in which situation, mindset were you during that time?
Yeah, so the second time we went back to WA, and we were living in Kalgoorlie, which is a desert town. It's about 7 hours from Perth. So still had amazing experiences there. The second time round for me was quite healing, because the first time round was really hard. New baby. I just didn't realize the implications of, because I'd never had a baby before. So I didn't realize how hard it was going to be the first time, being away from any network, any family, anything like that. The second time around was more healing. We lived in a better part. We made the most of being there. And I started to work. I started to massage, which was really healing for me.
Yeah.
Also, I started to once a month travel to Perth, and I was setting up contacts in Perth to, and I was massaging in Perth, working in Perth, and setting up work that way through retreats, to do more work in Perth, with eventually looking at moving to Perth and my partner working a FIFO from Perth.
Yeah.
But I just realized, well, if he's going to work away, I need to be somewhere that I can have people that I can rely on to ask for help. And if I moved to Perth, I wouldn't have that. I would have to create that. And to me, that was really daunting. So then again, we came back the second time to Queensland. And that was the most recent time I came back, and I was pregnant with a baby. So we were 20 weeks pregnant when I came back. And yeah, it's came back to him away and throwing another baby in the mix. Just don't know why I keep doing this. But I want to point on when I was going through the panic attacks with Jet, and when that's when he came home. But at that time, what I realized I needed the most, and this is the advice that I'd give anyone who's potentially considering having working away, or I, at that time with my middle child, I wasn't asking for help. Everyone thought I was coping. I feel like everyone would see me and they'd be like, oh my God, you're doing such a great job. You're such an amazing mom. Like, oh, love to have your family. You've got the best, for example, you've got the best in-laws. It must be great. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm actually dying inside. I'm just not coping at all. But I couldn't ask for help.
Why? Why is that?
There was a real fear of if I asked for help and not actually like almost being used, or not actually, like, I guess it was trust. Like I felt like I couldn't trust anyone enough to really hold me when I was going through a really hard time.
But isn't the reason why you move closer to your family in Queensland, to get the support?
Well, when I say family, I really mean friends, because this is where my friends are. And yeah, I've never really had that close, you know, being able to rely on family for help. So that's what I mean. It's more like friends. So for me, it was a learning process of realizing that, okay, I never want to get back to that point where I'm going to be in a panic attack, because that's not functioning and my children need me. So it was like this point of realizing, okay, I need to be able to reach out. And the only way that I'm going to do that is just by reaching out. And so I started by telling, you know, a few close friends that I've been friends with since I'd moved up here. And they'd already had kids as well, a couple of them. So it was just like, this is what's actually happening for me. You know,
sorry, what's because I can totally relate to, you know, that part where you say, you know, you feel like you couldn't reach out even though, you know, people are around you. Because even with my first one, you know, I had friends all the time saying to me, oh, you know, if you need help, you know, do it, like, you know, don't hesitate. But then for me, for example, inside it was just like, man, I don't want to be, I don't want to bother people with my choice, my kid, you know what I mean? Like, I made the choice to have one, so I take full responsibility of it and I'm gonna cope. And I guess in my perception as well was that, you know, especially when you are on social media and you see other women, other mom doing it, and you know they're either single mom and stuff like that, you're like, fuck, I can do this too, you know, I can do this, so I'm not gonna complain, I'm gonna take it up, I'm gonna, you know, blah blah. And then eventually you realize, you're like, you know what, this can't work, you know, like I can't kind of like fool myself or lie to myself. So therefore, well, in our situation, we decided to, you know, get a nanny, we hire a nanny. But for example, for you, like, what happened? Why did you feel like you couldn't you know, ask for help? Like, was it uh the perception, like how, what people are gonna think about you? Is that the society? Is that how you've been raised? Because you're, I don't know, maybe your parents were, you know, like, you know, that strong mom and stuff like that. Like, what happened? What was in your mind to feel like it's not okay to ask for help?
yeah, a lot of it for me, being honest, was that I, how could I ever help someone back? Because it was like, what I felt like I needed was, like a nanny or some help that that I wouldn't ever be able to repay. Because I'm like, because I was so tired and so strung and doing it all, got myself to a point of being so strung out that I just needed, I felt like I would just be asking for help all the time. You know, it was that kind of thing. So it was like, well, how could I don't want to, can you look after my kid? But I don't actually want to ever look after your kid, you know? I'm up on my plate. There was a lot of that going on as well. It's like, if I reach out, does that open me then to having to be there for other people?
Oh, so you mean that if, for example, you ask for help, so therefore you own them something, like?
Oh, yeah. And how to say that when I'm only just felt like I was, you know, keeping myself above water.
Yeah. And
but,
then, yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, it was just that I realized that it was, I didn't have to be, I was overthinking it.
Yeah. And now what's then the transition from feeling like, okay, if I ask my friend for help, then it means that I owe them something and I'm not sure if I can, you know, like give it back, pay it back. So what's the transition from thinking like that to say, fuck it, I need help and I'm going to reach out?
So for me, it was just baby steps. And what I did was I made a commitment to myself, because I never wanted to get to that point of being so stressed out that I was having a panic attack. So I let a handful of people know the truth of what was going on, that I was really stressed, and that they would be, if it was okay with them, that they would be like an emergency contact for me, that, you know, should I need them, and would they be okay with that if I needed to call them in the middle of the night, or, you know, if I needed to have a cry on the phone to them. And of course, you know, these women that I spoke to my girlfriends, they were like, of course, yeah, of course we would, you know. And then they, over time, they started to tell me off a little bit, like, you know, you could call me, you know, make sure you're calling me, you know. And this is the thing, I realized, I guess maybe because of my conditioning in childhood, who knows, or growing up, there were instances where I'd been burnt before. So it was for me about reestablishing trust with people that that I could trust. And that just took time. And it took me being honest and taking those little steps. And then, yeah, the first step was just telling these handful of people. And then the second step was actually ringing them up and saying, hey, I've got a doctor's appointment. Can you have, you know, my baby for half an hour? Yeah, of course, I'd love to, you know, like, but it was those little steps that the more I did it, the more I was like, oh, I can ask for help. Oh my goodness, this is amazing. Like, and then the more I was allowing myself to receive help, the more comfortable I was helping other mums and repaying the favor. So it just comes naturally now. Yeah. And there isn't that sort of mindset of, oh, I'm going to have to, it's almost tied in with not feeling good enough. Like, oh, if they help me, then I've got to owe them because I'm failing at this. I'm not coping. I should have this. Every other mum has this. But then the more I found that I opened up to my mum friends and non-mum friends, none of us have got it. You know, none of us know what we're doing. We're all winging it to a certain extent. And that in itself, you know, realizing that and having friends that sit with me in that, you know, allows me to just go, oh, well, just take a breath. It's all good.
But isn't that funny that, you know, you mentioned that the fact that the more you were open up and asking for help, your first worry before was just like, how I'm going to pay them back. But it's not about paying back to those person, you know what I mean? Just like, it's about giving back to, you know, the universe will work things around and be like, okay, someone is helping you, and then you help someone else, and this is how we kind of like paying back, if that's, you know, if you want to call that. This is, you know, the circle of life. This is, you know, the trust and how we should process as women, as moms, just like, you know, find your tribe and you know, go with it and trust. So which advice would you give to what are the advice that you would give to mom that right now are struggling with their kids, whether that their husband are working away or even if they're around but they're struggling? Like, what are the advice that you would give to them?
Well, yeah, that's one thing that I really have found is that even if your partner isn't working away, they can still be absent. So one piece of advice would be, don't compare yourself to other mums. And I still get that. People saying, well, you've got 3 kids and, you know, and single mum, you know, and you're coping. And I'm like, don't look at me like I'm coping. You know, don't put me up on that pedestal. Don't compare yourself. We're all going through different things. We all have, you know, you might have 2 kids. I have 3 kids. I might have family assisting me. You might not. There's so many different factors that come into play. So stop comparing and realize that we're all human.
Yeah.
And you're doing the best you can. So let's celebrate that. Let's celebrate it. And it's hard. You know, bringing up kids is hard. I don't care. It's a lot. It's mentally, physically, emotionally. So don't compare, because that's the first step to separation.
Yeah.
And just, realizing that we're all human, because then that brings back a little bit of connection. And to me, that's how we get through this, like what you were saying. That's how we get through this. We find our tribe. So we take those steps to connection.
Yeah.
Is asking for help.
reaching out, that's it. And how is now the family, the dynamic of the family, because your partner is still working, you know, away. So, you know, from a few years ago to right now that we're talking, like, what has happening, what change have you made, and which advice again would you give to partners, women that have partners who are working away?
Well, we we've actually been separated for the last few years, and we've only just made the decision to come back together. So and my youngest is 3, so I'm in a position now where I feel, because the early years are the most difficult, and it does get easier. I mean, my family dynamic is still chaos, but beautiful chaos, and I've grown with that chaos. We've been separated, we've come back together. My advice with that would be, again, it's like not comparing, and you tread the path that you need to. Don't worry about what other people say,
Yeah.
or what you feel like you should be doing. Like, for me and my partner, separating was the best thing we could do.
So can you talk a little bit more about that little part? Did you separate it because of that situation, that the fact that he was away, like you couldn't work things out, or was it just like, okay, you know what, I need my space, I need to find myself, please just, like, what happened? Like, what was kind of like the reason behind that? And if you thought that, okay, we're just gonna separate it and then we're gonna come back, or was just like, let's do it and figure out, let's go with the flow?
We for a long time we were going around in circles with the same issues, and just going around in circles, and it was because he was working away. I was like, I want you home, and he's like, well, you go get a job, and I'm like, well, I've got a baby, like, how am I gonna do this on my, I need you at home before I can get a job. So we were just going around in circles, and there was added family stress, there were other dynamics at play. We tried all sorts of things, and just realized that we were still going around in circles. So then I made the decision for us to separate, and it was the best decision for us. We both went our separate ways. We were so young when we got together as well, so it's almost like it was space for us to find ourselves again. Yeah. And after having children, you know, for me, my identity was so closely wrapped up in theirs. So we have both been on a journey though through this breakup,
of finding yourself, and you know,
and yeah, so I feel like, yeah, we've come back together, but there's no way that we would have come back together if we hadn't both been doing the work, right? Finding ourselves again. Who are we actually compatible? You know, why have we been together? Like, why are we staying together? Should we just be doing this? Like, it was like, why do we keep doing this to each other? We seem to be each other. So it was really that process of finding ourselves, stepping into being adults, really.
Yeah, and I guess also a lot of couples there, I guess we all have this, maybe this fear, and again perception of family should be together and blah blah, but then it's like, well, you can be a family and be separated and probably be even more happier than, you know, being together. So for you, your journey was about that separation was about finding yourself, and, you know, connecting again back to finding your values as well, because I guess, you know, being in my own experience as well, is that, you know, we become like, we are in a relationship, we lose ourselves and we lose our values, and it's like, who am I? So it's also, yeah, the finding the values, finding maybe finding or understanding our purpose, maybe our path, and have more clarity in our, journey, I would say. So then you decided to, who decided to, like, okay, we've grown through that separation and we're good to go back together. Like, what was the transition?
Well, I just wanted to touch on again with that as well, that a big part of when we separated was I realized that because he was working away, I had been living like a single mother, you know, for majority of the time. And then it was like this random person coming back into the house, that another person that I had to look after. So that for me in itself just shifted so much, just realizing that I was living like a single mum anyway. So then actually separating for me, and I'm not saying this is what everyone needs to do, but for me, it was able to get me into the mindset of, okay, I've got to stop relying on him. And as a single mum, really stepping into that single mum zone or whatever, helped me to find the strength that I needed to rely on myself. And what do I need to thrive as a mother, to look after these children? Otherwise, I was always relying on him, and that's where the arguments would come from, because it's like, I need you to do this, I need you to be home, I need, instead of fulfilling myself. So that was a big learning for me from the separating. So throughout the separation, we stayed really good friends. Couldn't get rid of him. No. I joke about that, but it's I joke as a default, but it's true. We realize that we are really good friends, and that's such a great basis for any relationship. He was also doing the work, so I was seeing improvements in his attitude, and him stepping into his potential, which was amazing to see. So when we made the decision to come back together, it was actually when all this COVID stuff happened. We were literally looking at putting our house on the market, talking to the real estate agent, and once the house had sold, because I was living in another house, we were going to sign the divorce papers, and that was it. We were like, yep, this is good, we're done. And then it was like, oh, you're not going to be able to sell the house. We don't know how long this is going to go on for. So we had to reassess everything. And we were just looking at each other going, well, the world's going to shit. We don't know how long this is going to last. Do I sign another 12-month lease, or do I actually look at what I've got in front of me? And that's when we opened our eyes to each other again, and really was like, yeah, okay, let's give this another go. And to me, it was when at that same time, it's sort of recognizing that potential for unconditional love, because we've come back into this now without those conditions that we were putting on each other.
Yes. I love that.
Big one. Yeah. And yeah, so I feel like there's that that freedom within, even though we're back together, there's that freedom of, I don't need him to do anything for me anymore. He makes those decisions for what he feels is, best for him and the family. And I make my decisions based what I feel like is best for me and the family. And they're working. It's working at the moment.
Isn't that beautiful? The thing is just like when we kind of like drop our perception and what a family should look like, or, a partner should be, and be like, you know what, I accept you the way you are. And, if you decide to work away, or if you decide not to, like, we just find a way, instead of, me taking you out of your values or out of your, like, it's just beautiful.
And to me, that's what love without condition. It's and the funny thing is, I'm like, yeah, work away, babe. That's awesome. I'm so grateful for you, for what you're doing for us as a family. And I've got this, I've got this. It's all good. Because I've got other things in place, you know, I've got training, I reach out for support, you know, I've got these other things in place now. So I'm like, yeah, work away. That's what you want to do. He's now saying, oh, I need to come home. We make this work.
It's beautiful. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. So thank you so much. Have you got anything else that you would like to share, or any advice, or, when you say you are doing the work, like what is it like? Which kind of work?
Yeah. Well, self work, you know, growth of self, finding out who we are,
Mm,
and also how we're living in life, and is that actually true and in alignment with who we are, or is this something we've just learned from our childhood or patterning or society. It's about letting go of preconceived ideas, notions, patterns, you know, that we've been living unconsciously.
yeah.
So a lot of, both of us during that time of separation, we were reading books, listening to self-help books, workshops, you know, connecting, anything that sort of sparked that little interest.
Mm.
What is that? Why am I doing that? You know, what do I need to look at within myself? So it's that self work.
That is beautiful. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. That is so powerful. And I really hope that, any women out there, any moms, any couple that, will listen to this can relate to you, and like be like, okay, you know what, we're not the only one. And, for things to work, we have to work, like there's no magic in that. A lot of people looking at relationship and say, I would love to be like this, I would love to have this, but you're not gonna have it or look like this if you just stay where you are without doing anything, like. So I really love your journey, and the fact that you understood that, you know what, let's take some moment, be apart, so that we can find ourselves, like recharge our energy, and go within and all that stuff. So it's so beautiful. So thank you again for sharing, and much love.
Thank you. Love you.
Thank you.